Today I am going to deal with the subject of engineering mechanics. In engineering mechanics, I have done a small video, so it is a continuation to that video. Before going to the continuation, let us recap once again the earlier session. So I have done a video on engineering mechanics in which I have dealt with principles of mechanics and force system. So mechanics is a body of science which deals with forces and its effects. That is, it is a branch of science which deals with study of forces and their effects on bodies. So importance of engineering mechanics, we have dealt that it is necessary for an engineer to analyze, to design and predict the behavior of any structure. Application of engineering mechanics. So engineering mechanics, the knowledge of engineering mechanics is necessary to solve engineering problems, planning, designing and construction of machines, design of civil structures, analyze forces acting on structures. What are the different forces acting on structures, and how what is the quantity of that force or the direction of that force, and how we have to design the structure according to those forces which are acting on that body. So in the knowledge of engineering mechanics is necessary for solving all these problems. That is, we have to meet the engineering problems, to plan, design and construct machines, design of civil structures, analyze forces acting on structures. So what is the basis for engineering mechanics? Engineering mechanics is evolved from principles of physics. That is, it is an extension for physics. So all the engineering mechanics, the rules of physics are applied even in engineering mechanics. But those those formulae which are in physics are exclusively used for our engineering mechanics. So we use the equations, the principles which are there in physics already, which we take for our own convenience, for our own engineering education. So the basic laws which form the foundation of our engineering mechanics are the Newton's laws of motion. You know, three laws of Newton's laws of motion. So these three laws, that is two laws of motion and action and reaction law, those three laws, and also gravitational law, parallelogram law of forces and law of transmissibility. These are all form the basis or foundation for engineering mechanics. So entire engineering mechanics rely on these concepts. Rigid body. So in engineering mechanics, we deal with generally rigid bodies. That is, bodies which are rigid, which are not deformed under load. So we can define a rigid body as this is a body which does not deform under the action of applied load. So when we apply load, it does not deform, or it doesn't change its shape or size. So it remains as it is. So when we apply load, the bodies which do not deform are rigid bodies. Generally, it is a idealized condition. Normally, when we apply load, all the bodies have at least very minute deformation may have. Even though they have minute deformation, we don't consider it as deformation. We take it as negligible. So we idealize the condition for developing the principles of engineering mechanics. Classification of engineering mechanics. So depending upon the state of the body, the engineering mechanics is divided into statics and dynamics. That is, we know what is the state. State means it is the state of rest or state of motion. When the body is either, it can be at rest or at motion. So these two states are possible. So depending upon whether it is at rest or at motion, the engineering mechanics is divided into statics and dynamics. When the body is at rest, that study is called the statics. that branch of engineering mechanics which study the bodies which are in motion is called dynamics. So dynamics is further divided into kinematics and kinetics. So kinematics deals with motion of the body due to the application of force. So we consider force and its effect on the motion of the body. Similarly, kinetics, it deals with motion without reference to the forces causing the motion. So we deal with motion, but we are not concentrating on the forces which are causing the motion. So before going into the details of engineering mechanics, we should know the concepts of space, time, mass, force, and etc. So space, we know space is the position of a point in a space is required to fix a position. We should know what is space to know where the point is, or to fix a point in a space we should know the concept of space. That is, mm, to locate or to establish a point we should know the concept of space. Similarly, time, to relate the sequence of events or start, end, all those events we should have the idea about the concept of time. Similarly, mass, the quantity of mass, the quantity of matter possessed in a body is called the mass, and this mass has some attraction. So when we have to know the different characteristics of mass, and the attraction arises out of the mass. Force, we say it is an agency which changes or tends to change the state of rest or uniform motion of the body. As I said, the body can be in two states, that is, either it can be in state of rest or in the state of motion. So an agency, an external agency which changes the state of the body, that is, when the body is in motion, if it halts the motion or if it stops the motion, that agency which is stopping the motion is called the force. Or when the body is at the state of rest, when some external agency affects some motion or it pushes or moves the body, then that agency which is causing the motion is called the force. And also systems of measurements and units. So we have different systems of measurements and the units. So measurement, what is measurement? Measurement involves comparison with chosen standard or units of similar kind. So when we measure, we compare the units of similar kind. So it is comparison of a standard of similar kind with other standard or with other quantity. To measure a physical quantity, we need a standard or unit in which the quantity is measured and the number of times the quantity contains the unit. So to measure any quantity, we should know what is the standard or unit which we are following, or what is the standard, what is the measurement we are using, and also how many times that measurement we are using. So these are two minimum prerequisites for measuring a physical quantity. So unit, it is the value of physical quantity in terms of which other quantities of similar kind of expressed. It is a value of a physical quantity. Physical quantity has many different characteristics. So some characteristic which we compare with similar kind of characteristic, that is either weight, length, or whatever it is, the same characteristic if we compare, then those units which were with those measuring comparison numbers, we call them as measurement or units. Units are divided into two categories, that is base units and derived units. Base units are units which do not depend on other units, that is they are independent of other units. They have they are expressed in their own terms. Those units are called base units. Derived units are units which are dependent on other base units. So derived units are derived from base units. Base units are generally length, mass, length and time. So derived units are units which are dependent on base units. So area, velocity, force and other many physical units are derived from the base units. System of units. So we have different systems of units. So different parts in the world have followed the different systems. Actually, many throughout the world, many people have many communities have their own system of measurements, but it creates confusion when everybody follows their own units. So generally, we follow the CGS system, MKS system, FPS system, and SI system. That is centimeter, gram, and second, meters, kilograms, seconds, foot, pound, seconds, and standard international system. So these are the four types of systems. So earlier, through many parts, the British used to follow British rule. So they applied their system of foot poundal system. Other other countries they follow MKS system or CGS system. But after after many deliberations, the entire world has come together to follow one system which is called the international standards or standard international system. So then we come to the actual study of our mechanics, that is the force system. Earlier we have defined force as an agency which changes the state of any body. So to define a force, if we need some magnitude, direction and point of application. A force is a vector quantity. We have learnt in our physics in our earlier classes that there are two types of quantities, that is scalars and vectors. Scalar quantities are quantities which are only expressed in terms of magnitude. They do not depend on direction. But in for vector quantities we need both magnitude and direction. So when a vector, for every vector quantity only it is complete when we express the magnitude and direction. Similarly, our force which is a vector quantity needs magnitude, direction and also the point of application. So to express any the quantity of force we need minimum three characteristics, that is properties: magnitude, direction and point of application. These three are must to express a force. Otherwise the force becomes incomplete and it becomes meaningless. When we express force in without all these three items, all these three properties, we cannot express it completely. So it becomes meaningless, or it does not give complete information about the force. So SI unit of force. In international standard units, we express the force in terms of newtons. So these units are named after the great English scientist Sir Isaac Newton. So many units which are derived later, once they were not known to humankind, electricity or many other things, acceleration due to gravity or many other units, the intensity of light, all these units they are derived recently means some 100 years ago. So they are given the names of the scientists like Ampere, Coulomb, Newton, etc. So here the force units are in SI system are given as newtons. So these units are given the name of the great English scientist Sir Isaac Newton. So newtons and kilonewtons are used in SI system. A newton is defined as a force required to produce an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. So to produce an acceleration of, as we know, force is mass into acceleration. So mass is, if 1 newton is equal to sorry, 1 kg of mass into 1 meter per second square acceleration. So that gives the force. So 1 newton is 1 kg newton, 1 kg meter per second square. 1 newton is equal to 1 kg meter per second square. This is the SI unit of force. So next is principle of transmissibility. Transmissibility, that is how transmission occurs. The principle deals with the transmission of force. This principle is about the how force can be transmitted. So what is the effect of force by transmission? So it states that the state of a rigid body remains unchanged if the point of application of force acting on it is transmitted to act at another point along its line of action. So it says that when force is applied on a body, it can be replaced by force along the same line in the same direction. That is, if we see these two figures, the first figure is pushing the body along the diameter. It can be replaced by another force which is pulling that ellipse along the diameter in the same direction. So the first figure and second figure, the four has the same effect. This principle is called the principle of transmissibility. That is, either it is push or pull, but if it is along the same straight line, along the line of action, then the effect will be same. So that concept we call it as the principle of transmissibility. The force can be applied as a push or pull, but along the same line of action. So here, if we see, you should be clear from this figure that either it is pull or push, it should be along the same direction, then only the effect will be same. When the force, the quantity of force is same, the effect will be also same. So the force, the body, the state of body will remain unchanged if the force, application of force is transmitted through the line of force. We can shift that force from here to here, here to here also. So the effect will be same on the rigid body. So that principle we call it as principle of transmissibility. Either suppose, if we, a common example is our lawn roller, which we do during the cricket practice. So during the cricket practice, we can pull the lawn roller or push the lawn roller, but if we do it along the same line, the effect will be same. So the application of force can be anywhere on the rigid body, but it should be in the same direction along the same line, then the effect will be same. So scalars and vectors, as earlier we have also dealt with them. That is, the physical quantities which are completely defined by only magnitude are called scalars, and vectors are the quantities which are expressed by both magnitude and direction. So in physics also we might have learnt these concepts. So I am not going deep into these concepts, because as generally you are aware with these concepts. These are already you have learnt in your physics syllabus. So vector representation of force. So a force, as I said, force is a vector quantity that it has both magnitude and direction, and also the point of application. So how do we represent any quantity, any force in a vector, in vectors? That is, the vector representation in vector representation, we draw a line and we put an arrowhead in the direction, showing the direction. So the length of the line will give you the magnitude and the arrowhead will give you the direction. So force, direction, and the tail will give you the point of application. So these three will satisfy the prerequisites of a force. That is, by vector representation, we show an arrow which has an arrowhead at the end. At the initial point, it will be point of application, and the length to some ratio or some proportion, some scale, then that shows the magnitude. So force can be represented to any scale. Suppose some 10 kilonewtons of force can be represented as 10 centimeters or 100 centimeters, depending upon your convenience, according to some ratio and with some arrowhead, so that the force will be fully represented. System of forces, that is, when number of forces act, then those forces are called system of forces. So on a body or on a plane, anywhere, there may be several forces. All those forces form the force system. Force system, when number of forces act on a body, they form a force system. Forces can be classified as coplanar and non-coplanar. So we know what is a plane. A plane is a body which has only which has x and y direction. Generally, we call it as x and y plane. A plane which has only two-dimensional body. It is a two-dimensional body. So there may be n number of planes in the space. Also, so when forces act along any plane, then their forces are called coplanar forces. That is, suppose this screen is a plane. So if forces act along that plane, then those forces are called planar forces or coplanar forces. So if I take this book, this is one plane. So if forces act along this plane, they become coplanar. Suppose some forces act along this plane and some other come in from different planes, then they will become non-coplanar. No, coplanar. Planar is along the plane, so it is coplanar is along the same plane, and non-coplanar, they are not along the same plane. So it is like plane is say one surface. So planar is along the surface, coplanar is along the same surface. So coplanar forces are forces acting along the same plane. Similarly, non-coplanar forces are forces which do not act along the one plane. They may be from different planes. So coplanar forces, the forces act along the same plane. So forces when they act along the same plane, we call it as coplanar forces. In civil engineering studies, generally, though we have three-dimensional forces, we, due to their difficulty, we tend to make them as a planar analysis, and we finally arrive at the solutions. So we don't do 3D analysis regularly. We consider the problem to be as plane problem. So many of the civil engineering problems in up to graduation level, we consider it as planar problems. So the forces, we consider them to acting along the same plane, any one plane. So coplanar forces are further classified as concurrent forces, non-concurrent forces, parallel forces, collinear forces. Point of concurrency. That is, when many lines meet at a point, that point we call it as point of concurrency. Similarly, concurrent forces are many forces which act at a point. So on a single point, in a same plane, when different forces act, they are called concurrent forces are coplanar concurrent forces. So to be precise, we should call them as coplanar concurrent forces. So every time it will be difficult to say coplanar concurrent forces, we tend to say concurrent forces. That we mean that it is same along the same plane. So when we say concurrent forces, we mean that it is along the same plane, that is coplanar. Non-concurrent forces. Forces may not meet at a point. They may be having maybe in the same plane but at different directions, different points at different points. Then those forces are non-concurrent. They are not meeting at a single point. So those forces are called non-concurrent forces. Similarly, parallel forces. Forces may be parallel to each other. Then also collinear forces. The forces may be along the same line. Instead of being parallel, they can be along the same line. So collinear. Line is line. From line, linear has emerged. From linear, collinear has emerged. So along the same line is called the collinear force. The forces which act along the same line are called the collinear forces. Parallel forces. Parallel forces, again we can classify them as like forces and unlike forces. When the parallel forces act along the same direction, they are called like forces. That is, parallel forces are coplanar, parallel, then they act towards the same direction, then they are called as like parallel forces. So in this figure, these three forces are acting along they are parallel but they are acting in the same direction, then they are called the like forces. In the second figure, unlike parallel forces, they are parallel but they are not in the same direction. Though they are parallel, they are in different directions. So then they become the unlike parallel forces. So general force system. So in a general force system, several forces act in a plane. So when several forces are acting on a plane, we call it as general force system. So they are not parallel, they are not intersecting. These forces will not be parallel or they won't be intersecting. Then those forces are called general force system. Resultant of a force system. So as we discussed that when several forces act on a body, they all the forces tend to create one effect. That one effect is called the resultant. That is, when different bodies act on a body, finally the body moves in one direction along one direction, with some magnitude. So that final effect of force and magnitude, that is magnitude and direction of force, is called the resultant. So in other words, the definition, as per the definition, resultant is a single force which has the same effect as that of an entire force system. So all the forces put together have the one single effect, that is called the resultant. So resultant is nothing but a single force which can be which replaces all the forces and has the same effect, that is same magnitude and direction which all the forces would have resulted. All the forces in the system can be replaced by a single force to get the same effect. So if you remove all those forces and replace by a single force, and what is the effect of that all the forces, the magnitude and direction, if we replace with a single force, if the same result is given by this single force, then that force is called the resultant. So here we will see there are three single forces. If we replace with a three individual forces, if we replace with a single force of the same magnitude and the same direction, then the second figure is called as resultant. Instead of three single forces along this collinear forces, we can replace three collinear forces, add it together algebraically, so that we get a single force. That is called the resultant. So here our next topic is the resultant of two coplanar concurrent forces. Suppose on a body, if two forces are acting along the same plane, what is the effect or what is the resultant of that those two forces. So whenever suppose if we if two persons pull some body in different directions, then what is the final effect of that those the forces applied by those two persons. So that we in our interest is to find out the what is the net effect of those two forces, whether they are pull or push, whatever it is, but what is the final effect due to those two forces. So to find out the resultant, we have different methods to find out the forces resultant due to two concurrent coplanar forces. Then we have these methods, these four methods we have. That is, we either we follow the parallelogram law of forces, or triangle law of forces, or vector method, or graphical method. We can solve by all these four methods, but it is convenient to do it by the first two methods. That is, analytically we can do it by parallelogram law of forces or by triangle law of forces, but normally we apply the parallelogram law of forces. So parallelogram law of forces. Parallelogram law of forces. Parallelogram law of forces says that if two coplanar forces acting at a point are represented in magnitude and direction by adjacent sides of a parallelogram, the diagonal passing through that point represents the resultant of those two forces both in magnitude and direction. That is, when two adjacent forces, when two forces which are acting on a body are represented by two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. So if we take two forces as two adjacent sides of parallelogram and complete the parallelogram, that is, those two forces will become two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. So parallel to the first force, there will be opposite side, and the second force there will be another opposite side. These four sides will make a parallelogram. Then if we draw a diagonal from that point, that diagonal will represent the resultant of these two forces and also the direction of these two forces. So this is how the parallelogram law works. So parallelogram of forces, once again will I'll explain that if two coplanar forces are represented by two adjacent sides of a parallelogram, then the third side, the diagonal, represents the resultant both in magnitude and direction. So if you see this figure, this is, if this is one force, this is the other force, and if we complete the parallelogram, then the diagonal will represent the resultant. So we will derive the equation for finding the resultant of two coplanar concurrent forces. So if we consider that this is P and this is Q, that is, two forces are drawn as the sides of two adjacent sides of a parallelogram according to their magnitudes to some scale, then these two sides represent the parallelogram. So let us say this is a parallelogram formed, let us say it A, B, C, D are the four corners of the parallelogram. So AB is force P and AC is another force Q. Then this forms a parallelogram. So let us drop a perpendicular from D so that AC is extended to E. So E is the point which is perpendicular to AC. So then this triangle ADE will become a right angled triangle. So from this triangle ADE, we can say AD square, that is resultant square, is equal to AE square plus DE square. So AE square plus DE square, that is the base square plus height square, is equal to the diagonal square. So anyhow, AE is nothing but our Q, DE is P force. So from triangle CDE, we can say, so AD square is equal to AC square plus AE square plus DE square. So R square is equal to AE square plus DE square. But from triangle, small triangle CDE, we can say R square is equal to AC square plus CE square plus DE square. That is nothing but AE is Q, C is P cos theta, D is P sin theta. Therefore, it is Q plus P cos theta whole square plus P sin theta square. So, if we expand it, Q square plus P square cos theta plus 2PQ cos theta plus P square cos sin square theta it will be. So, if we add them up, R will be equal to Q square plus P square plus 2PQ cos theta. So, R is equal to under root of Q square plus P square plus 2PQ cos theta. That is the resultant. So, by seeing that triangle, by knowing the triangle ADE, we can find out what is resultant. That is, resultant is equal to Q square plus P square plus 2PQ into cos theta, the angle between these two forces. So if theta is the angle between these two forces, then we can say the resultant is equal to analytically root of P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos theta. Similarly, the direction of the resultant is given by, if we see that triangle ADE once again, tan theta is equal to DE by AE. So DE is nothing but our P cos theta, P sin theta by Q plus P cos theta. So tan theta is equal to P sin theta by Q plus P cos theta. So alpha is equal to tan inverse of P sin theta plus Q cos theta. This is how we make an equation. That is, we derive an equation. So equation can be derived easily using a parallelogram, and by dropping a perpendicular and making a equilateral triangle, and we can easily derive the formula for the resultant of two coplanar concurrent forces. Then finally we have R is equal to under root P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos theta. So then we have two special cases. That is, when theta is 90 degrees, that is the angle between two forces is 90 degrees, then our parallelogram becomes a rectangle. So it becomes a special case. That is, when two forces are acting perpendicularly, the diagonal will be equal to P square plus Q square under root. So that is why when theta is equal to 90, cos theta becomes 0, then R is equal to root square 2PQ cos theta also becomes 0, then R is equal to root of P square plus Q square. That is simple diagonal is equal to sum of the the square of the vertical side and the base under root. That is by our simple Pythagoras theorem. Or when the theta is equal to 0, that is when both forces are acting, when the theta is 0 means that the angle between two forces is 0. That means they are collinear. So when the forces are collinear, the theta will become, theta is 0 degrees, cos theta is 1. So our formula becomes R is equal to P square plus Q square plus 2PQ under root. So P square plus Q square plus 2PQ will become P plus Q whole square. So R square is equal to P plus Q whole square. So R is equal to P plus Q. Nothing but simple addition of those two forces. The algebraic sum of the two collinear forces gives the, that means the sum of two collinear forces is the resultant. So our resultant is equal to P plus Q. When P and Q are acting along the same line, then simply by adding their magnitudes we get the resultant, and also direction will be equal to 0. So conclusion. So mechanics is a branch of science which deals with study of forces and their effects on the bodies. Its study is important for engineers to analyze, design and predict the behavior of the structural members. So in principle of transmissibility, we have learned that a force can be applied from any side on the body, but it should be along the same straight line. Then only the effect will be same. So the effect of force will be same if the force is applied anywhere on the body along the same straight line. Then the effect of the force will be the same. This principle is called the principle of transmissibility. So we have scalars and vectors, that is the bodies which have only magnitude and the bodies which have both magnitude and direction. So forces, as we deal with forces, force is a vector quantity which has both magnitude and direction. In addition to these two, to represent a force, vector representation of force, what we do is we draw a line and put a arrowhead. So the line will give you the magnitude, the length of the line will give you the magnitude, and the head will give the arrowhead shows the direction of the force. So while representing the force, we put the length in some scale. So depending upon the magnitude of force, we draw the length of the line to some scale. So in a force system, when number of forces are acting, we call it as a force system. So in force system there can be coplanar or non-coplanar. When forces act along the same plane, then they are called coplanar forces. Non-coplanar forces are forces which act in 3 dimensions. That is, each any dimension, from any plane they can be acting. But coplanar will act along the same plane. So we can have infinite number of planes. So when forces acting on any plane, then they are called coplanar. Excuse me. Coplanar forces are further classified as concurrent forces, non-concurrent forces, parallel forces and collinear forces. That is, concurrent forces are forces which meet at a point. Non-concurrent forces are forces which do not meet at a point. Parallel forces are forces which are parallel and also coplanar. Collinear forces are forces act along the same straight line. They act along the same line. Parallel forces can be further classified as like forces and unlike forces. When parallel forces point to same direction, that they act along the same direction, then they become like forces. When these parallel forces, some forces are reverse, when they are not in the same direction, then those parallel forces which are not in the same direction are called the unlike forces. General force system. In general force system, there will be several forces. They will not intersect. They do not intersect, and they are not parallel. So this is a general system. In general force system, we want to know the resultant of two forces, resultant of any number of forces. So our aim is to find the what is the net effect of all the forces on a body. So we can define a resultant as one single force which can replace all the other forces which have same effect as that of all the other forces. That is the simple definition of a resultant. So a single force which has same effect as that of entire force system. That is called the resultant of forces. So there may be several forces, but in our initially we will learn how to find the resultant of two forces which act on a body, two coplanar forces which act on a body. So for that we have several methods, that is the parallelogram law of forces, triangle law of forces, graphical methods, or vector representation, vector method. But in analytical method we generally use the parallelogram law of forces. So parallelogram law of forces states that if two two forces acting on a point are represented by two adjacent sides of a parallelogram, and then the diagonal represents the resultant both in magnitude and direction. So we can derive the equation for this using the parallelogram by constructing a parallelogram and dropping a point to make the one side of the parallelogram a right angle triangle, and then we derive the formula, that is the resultant is equal to p square plus q square plus 2pq cos theta, where p is one force, q is the other force, and theta is the angle between these two forces. Then alpha, the direction of the resultant, is given by tan inverse p sin theta by q plus p cos theta. That is, if P is inclined force and Q is horizontal force, let us suppose, then the direction is given with respect to horizontal is alpha is equal to P sin theta by Q plus P cos theta. Then we have two simple special cases while using these formulas, that is the theta can be any angle. So when theta is 90, that is when two forces are acting perpendicularly, we know that when two forces are acting perpendicularly, we can directly the diagonal, we can add them directly. That is, when two forces are acting perpendicularly, the diagonal is simply the p square plus q square under root. That is it becomes a rectangle. So that diagonal is the sum of the squares of two forces under root. That will give you that is a simple by using simple Pythagoras theorem we can find out the diagonal or resultant. So when theta is 90, that when two forces are perpendicular to each other, then the resultant becomes root of p square plus q square, simply by squaring the forces and adding and by under the square root, then it will give the resultant. Similarly, we will prove that the sum of two collinear forces is algebraic sum of their magnitudes. That is, when two forces act collinearly, by simply adding them algebraically, we know that they are their resultant. So to prove that, we take that the angle between those two forces, let us suppose P and Q is theta is 0, then R is equal to root of P square plus Q square plus 2pq cos 0. That is P square plus Q square plus 2pq under root, that is P plus Q whole square under root, that is nothing but P plus Q. So R is equal to P plus Q. That means we have simply added the two forces. Okay, this is how we calculate the resultant of two forces when they act concurrently along the same plane. So thank you. With this I will conclude this session. Thank you.